my topic is decoding the OBSCAN. As you well know, the topography has evolved gradually, and this is one of the most reliable tools for common topography. And now this OBSCAN has come to the generation of OBSCAN 2Z. So I don't have any final thing to disclose here. The principle of OBSCAN is a 3D slit scan topographic machine which combines the both slit lamp scan and the Placido disk images for topographic analysis of the cornea. The OBSCAN uses ray trace or geometric optics which depends on the elevations. So why was the need for this type of topography? Why was the Placido disk not enough? Because the Placido disk only measures the anterior tear film curvature. Other data such as posterior surface power, posterior surface elevation, pachymetries are not measured, and high risk of missing out the foam opacity or subclinical keratoconus. So the mechanism is it measures a series of slit beam images of two scanning slit lamp projecting beams at about 45 degree and to the right and left of the instrument axis. So 40 images are taken, 20 on the right, 20 on the left, which is captured in 1.5 seconds, and about 9,000 points are identified and evaluated. So the first, what are the features to study in this OBSCAN? So the main features which we'll see in this OBSCAN map is the anterior elevation, posterior elevation, corneal pachymetry, white to white diameter, anterior chamber depth, angle kappa, pupillary diameter, and the SIMK reading. This is usually the normal quad map, and this you can see here. The anterior float maps on the left side upper, and the right side upper is the posterior float or the back surface of the cornea, and left side down is the keratometric, and this is the representation representing with the rule astigmatic cornea, and the right side down is the pachymetry map, which is showing the pachymetry from the thinnest and to the 7 millimeter of 645 microns at the 7 millimeter zone. So we assume the best fit sphere, and best fit sphere is nothing but a reference of corneal surface of the best fit mathematically approximate to all data points generated in by the machine. So the pink color is supposed to be the best fit sphere. Any elevations or depressions or congruence along with the best fit has to be represented in a different color codes. So, for example, this map shows best fit sphere. You can see above it is written anterior best fit sphere of 7.84 millimeter with 43.0 diopters, and posterior best fit sphere of 6.55 millimeter. So, why it is important? So, two things here we have to see. The importance is in the ratio. The ratio of the radii of anterior BFS to posterior BFS should be, if it is more than 1.21, it arises suspicion regarding keratoconus or foam opacity keratoconus. Point 2 is the posterior BFS power. If it is greater than 55 diopters, again it is suspicious of any keratoconus or subclinical keratoconus. So best fit sphere, we have to have 2 points to keep in mind. So this is how we describe the best fit sphere. You can see the elevation is represented in various color codes. The points which are above the best fit sphere, which is represented here as a white line, is represented in various grades of elevation like orange color or red color. And elevations which are below the BFS white line is represented in blue color, and that is how the depression is seen, and which is along with the best fit sphere is represented in green color, and this is how this green, yellow or red color comes. So we go to separately one by one for the anterior elevation maps. Anterior elevation maps subtracts the calculated BFS against the corneal surface, and the difference is experienced in the millimeters. So similarly, posterior elevation map, this is the back surface of the cornea. This also we have to see the elevation maps of the posterior high point more than 50 microns above the bedspace sphere. Thus we can bring the crosser the center of the point here. So we can bring the crosser here, and you can find the microns which will be scaled here. You can find how much it is showing. So the relative difference between of more than 100 microns between the highest and the lowest point of the posterior elevation map has to be seen also. The keratometric map, next map is the keratometric map, which was in the quad map in the left side of the quad map, and this will show the reflected data from placido disc based imaging, and this is needed for SIMK analysis. And this also shows highlights in the keratometry reading. So we have to see the mean power, which should not be more than 46 diopters. Any atypical pattern in the keratometry readings, you can see this is a with rural astigmatism showing this picture of yellow and green, and any atypia over this can also be noticed. And again, astigmatic discrepancy of more than 1.5 diopters in 3 mm zone and or more than 2 diopters in 5 mm zone is an alert sign. So fourth map is the Pachy map. So this measures the thickness from the tear film to the Descemet's membrane, and the pachymetry values are usually greater than the ultrasonic pachymetry values, and the adjustment factor called acoustic factor can be used to replicate the ultrasonic pachymetry. This acoustic factor will reduce by 8%, and it will achieve almost the pachymetry value. And pachymetry, the thinnest pachymetry should not be less than 470 microns is a cutoff for the refractive surgery, and the difference of 100 microns between the thinnest point and the superior 7 mm zone, more than 100 mm is also is an alert sign. So there are few criteria. Different people have mentioned, given us few criteria. This is like PD's criteria for form fusti keratoconus. So or subclinical keratoconus. Here, which I showed you in the last map, that anterior posterior BFS ratio, if it is greater than 1.21, it is suspicious of a subclinical or form fusti keratoconus. Astigmatic discrepancy of more than 1.5 diopters at 3 mm zone and more than 2 diopters at 5 mm zone is also an alert sign. And other people also had added like Ross criteria, and this also shows the posterior elevation and map of a high point of more than 50 microns in the best fit sphere, and BFS more than 55 diopters in the posterior profile, and the thinnest point on the cornea should correspond to the highest point in the elevation of the posterior corneal surface, and the relative difference of 100 microns between the highest and lowest point in the posterior elevation map. So I'll go through a map. For example, it will be easy for us to understand now. So you can see this is a typical keratoconus map. This shows your ratio. So first point what I said is the ratio between the anterior in BFS and posterior BFS. So this is more than 1.21. So that's criteria. You are combined. Here it is written. You just need to divide it. It will be like 7.6 and divided by 6.5. So you divide, that ratio should be more than 1.21. So it will be 1 point. So second point, whatever I told, this is again example wise. This is the posterior BFS which is more than 55 diopters. You can see here. This also which shows. So this also. And third is the elevation points. You can see the anterior elevation points and posterior elevation points, both matching. And fourth is the SIMK reading. The mean in keratometric reading is more than is about 59.5 diopters. And third, and then next is the 3 mm. Here it will be written 3 mm. So 3 millimeter irregular zone. You have to see irregular. So 3 millimeter irregularity is about 6.9 in this case, and same is 5 millimeter is 7.9. So ideal normal is more than 1.5, more than 2. So that is how it is different. And this is now the thinnest pachymetry difference now it is coming, which is about 460 microns, and last it is also give the pupillary center and the pachy difference, and next is the pachy difference of more than 100 microns from the thinnest to the 7 millimeter, and last but not the least is the skewed axis with very high case. So this is how whatever I showed is depicted in this map. So this is one more example of a stiff cornea, and probably you can say it is a subclinical keratoconus, but this is how we have to rule out. Even if whatever the power is, we have these are the cases and not to go for any refractive surgery. So this is the points we have to the points to be seen in the stiff cornea. So see the BFS changing, and you can see the powers 49 and 46, and see the mean power. So all are the and see the thickness. These are all points we just need to tell you the stiff cornea. Next is the thin cornea, but it is not keratoconus. So, or not subclinical keratoconus also. So this is, you can see, this is the normal limits, and it is 43, 44 or 42.9, and next pupillary diameter is 4.6 is written, and thinnest is 430 microns. But it is not a keratoconic eye. It is a normal cornea, but it is thin cornea. So this is same thing, the typical keratoconus which I have shown last now. And this is a post-LASIK. You can see the central flattening and little bit high posterior stiffening. So this is usually when you ablate centrally, and you will get this a little bit thinning posterior surface, and but still you can see the residual thickness bed is about 454, and is a well centered flattened cornea to ablate this power. So this is how it hides the flattened cornea. We have to see, and the thickness, and you have to search for any high posterior float, anything, or thinning or inferior thinning or stiffening. But that in this case it is not there. It is a well done, no post-op regression or nothing. The normal post. This is a case of typical pellucid marginal degeneration. You can see the crab claw. And this, and also here is the inferior thinning and the inferior stiffening. This is very classic. You can see this typical picture of anterior float matching with the posterior float, and this is the picture, very characteristic. And this is another one is keratoglobus. Here you can see keratoglobus. It is only, you can see the cornea will be uniformly thin. That is the main catch here. There is no, you can see from 7 millimeter to 7 to 7 or 9 to 9, everything is uniformly thin, and will be little bit stiff case with thin cornea, and you can see the average case there, and the thickness is about 294 microns. So now the post-LASIK ectasia. This is a case which you have to. Last case was only LASIK normal. Now you can see this post-LASIK. This is how we have to search for. If there is ectasia, then you can see the posterior elevation, and it is presented high. That means backside of the cornea is thin and is elevated, and it is matching with anterior this thing also, this stiffness. Similarly, you can see there is a keratometric changes. So all the inferior points are matching, and the central flattening also shows that it is a thinned out cornea, but probably it is little bit above. It is done ablation, is not pure central, but the and see the difference also, pachy difference in the center, thinning, and this thing has become more than 110, 120. So this is how it's the history of with a history of LASIK and having getting this, you can correlate with the post-LASIK ectasia. So, and you can see here main thing, this thing will change, and the case which was there, irregularities have changed, and both in 3 mm zone and 5 mm zone, and the posterior float which I said, posterior float is become very high. So, although OPSCAN is a very important tool, we still have some limitations, and the limitations being that the vertical image slices that are separated from one another and have no common point and cannot register any eye movement, and that occurs while capturing the images. And absence of keratoconus progression map also one limitations. Otherwise, main limitation for us in practical point is very costly actually. Each of us, otherwise if it's not a center or an institute, is very difficult to have a this machine. Although it is very reliable and predictable, but still the machine is very, very costly. And other machines have come up which has got added advantage beyond this. So, in spite of the superiority of the Pentacam, the OPSCAN still remains as a commonly used elevations based topography. Thank you for your kind attention.